then buys baseboards for a bedroom. Wow, that is a lot of B's. The perimeter stands for a distance around an object. It's a length. The perimeter around the bedroom, taking away the closets and the doorway, is 37 feet. So he needs to buy 37 feet of baseboards. What is he, if he wanted to find out what 37 feet was in yards and feet? So we would start by writing 37 feet is equal to how many yards and how many feet. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is how many full yards are in 37 feet. In order to do that, we need to know how many feet are in 1 yard. Now, these conversions, they're on your formula sheet, but if you can memorize them, the more of them that you have memorized, the better. Because these are things you run into in real life situation. Someone tells you, oh, that's 15 feet. Someone else says, no, it's not 15 feet, it's 5 yards. And they get an argument. You're like, that's the same thing. But we need to know some of these conversions. So 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So how many 3 feet are there in 37 feet? 12. There would be 12 full yards. In fact, I'm going to write it here. If 1 yard is 3 feet, 12 yards is equal to 36 feet. How many feet would be left over from our 37? There's 1 foot left over. So 37 feet would be 12 yards and 1 foot. Now, why might you need to do this? Well, you go to the store or you go to the lumber yard, and sometimes they sell things by the foot, and sometimes they sell things by the yard. And so in this case, if this particular lumber yard only sold things by the yard, now I know how much I'd have to buy. I'd have to go out and I'd probably have to buy 13 yards. 12 yards wouldn't be enough. You can't buy stretchy baseboards. Right? Even though it's closer to 12 yards than it is to 13 yards. Why would you have to buy 13? Well, you need to have enough, so you'd have more waste. So sometimes in math, have you learned about rounding in math? Right? Like if I said round to the nearest whole number and I had 35.2, you'd round down to 35. If I said 35.7, you'd round up to 36. What do you do when it's right in the middle, 35.5? You round up to 36, okay? But in certain situations in real life, rounding works differently. If you calculate that you need 7.1 pails of paint to paint your house, how many pails of paint do you go and buy? 8. Did we just round wrong? No. But 7 isn't enough. So sometimes rounding, once you get a real life situation, ends up being a little bit different. Oh, look at that. Baseboards are sold by the yard for $5.99. So first of all, we've already talked about this. In this case, you would need 13 yards. What is the cost of materials before taxes? $13 times $5.99. Someone have their calculator? 77.87. And that gives us our cost before taxes. Here's one for you to try. Sarah has 4 yards of chain to make bracelets. Each bracelet needs 8 inches. Well, let's get The same words here. 8 inches of chain. How many bracelets can Sarah make? So how did he come about this? Did anybody first take the 4 yards and convert it to inches? Okay, good. Did you get 144 inches?
Yeah.
And then, if you need 8 inches of chain to make a bracelet, we could then take our 144 divided by 8, and that divides nicely to give you 18. Perfectly 18? Nice. Because it's a word problem, a statement at the end, she could make 18 bracelets. Our last question here deals with scale diagrams. Obviously, in many situations, it does not make sense to make a map the exact same size as the thing you want to look at. Okay? If you wanted a map of Manitoba and it had enough paper to cover all of Manitoba, that would be really annoying to unfold and have enough space to see it all. So there's a scale on a scale diagram. So here is a map of Alaska that has a scale of 1 to 4.75 million. What that means, the fact that there's no units here, and most times what you will get on a scale diagram is they'll tell you something in 2 different units. They'll say 1 centimeter is 5 kilometers. So you know that if you went 3 centimeters, you'd go 15 kilometers. Sometimes a scale diagram gives units. Sometimes a scale diagram doesn't give units, and in those cases, like this one, that means that 1 meter on your map would be 4.75 million meters in reality. Whatever unit you use, this is how many units of that same unit would be in reality. So in this question, the difference between the city of Seward and Anchorage is 1.75 inches. What is this distance to the nearest mile? So this question has a bit of everything that we've done so far. It's got some complicated conversions. It involves a decimal. We're going to have to work a little bit. We know the scale. We know that, and I can put it out here on the map, 1 inch is equal to, in reality, 4,750,000 inches. So if I wanted to know how much 1 3/4 or 1.75 inches is in reality, what did I do from here to here? I multiplied by 1.75. So we'll have to take out our calculator for this. 8,312,500 inches. Now, the problem right now is, when was the last time you experienced 8 million inches in a row? Probably not, right? When numbers get that big, we can't really envision them. We don't really know what that means. So we go to a unit we're more comfortable with, and that's why this question is saying, what is that distance to the nearest mile? So if we look back at our conversions, do we know how many inches are in a mile? No. We know how many feet are in a mile, and we know how many yards are in a mile, but on our conversion, and the same thing that would be on our formula sheet, we don't have how many inches are in a mile. But what we could do is we could first convert what we have to either feet or to yards. And this is something you would have a choice on. So if you were trying to choose, maybe you decide, I'd like to use yards. So your next question becomes 8,312,500 inches is equal to how many yards? And I know that there are 36 inches in 1 yard. What should I do? I should divide by 36. So notice in this question, this is a great question, because when we are doing conversions in the metric system, sometimes I use this technique where I multiplied, did that off to the side, and sometimes I use the technique where I said, this is my small one, this is a bigger one, you need less of a bigger one, so that case it makes sense to divide. And so now I'm going to take my answer and divide. Some nice things about the calculator. Okay? I just had this answer in there. When I just push the divide button, it automatically takes whatever answer you had and says, okay, we'll take whatever answer you had and divide it by 36 and push enter. So in this case, it has a decimal. There would be 230,902 full yards and a little bit left over. Okay? For our example, since we're just rounding to the nearest mile, I'm guessing that little bit extra is not going to make a difference. So I'm going to round it here. I should look at it a little bit longer. 230,902. I'm going to round it 230 to 903. As you get further on in the IB math, you'll learn that when you round things, you change your equal sign to an approximation sign. Now we know how many yards it is. And the nice thing about yards is our yards has a conversion to miles. We know that 1 mile on our formula is 1,760 yards. So again, we're going from small to something bigger. We'll need less of them. So again, the idea of dividing makes sense. And since I have the answer there, I can just hit divide. Whoops. by 1760, 131.19. To the nearest mile would be 131 miles. Have you ever traveled somewhere 130 miles away? Do you have an idea for that? Maybe you think in kilometers all the time, so you might have to convert that to kilometers. But I have a better idea of what 130 miles is than I do of 8 million inches. And so this conversion helps me understand better what's happening. So when we finish a section of our notes, there's going to be a homework assignment listed at the end. Okay? Sometimes we'll get class time to work on it, sometimes we won't. Right now we're kind of in between lessons because usually a lesson is designed that this sort of happens near the end of class. We still have quite a bit of time, but I am going to give you some time to work on this just to get used to your textbook and how it works, how to find the answers in the back. So take out your textbooks.